You experience anxiety in a situation, particularly that other people are going through, that really has no impact on you whatsoever? Hi, I'm Shannon. I'm a counselor in training. I'm also autistic and I endured childhood trauma. A lot of times, situations like this, when you experience anxiety, even though you're not experiencing the situation yourself or in the situation or making the decisions yourself, it's actually somebody else going through it, but you're experiencing the anxiety. It's likely due to childhood trauma. A lot of times this is because growing up, you were likely the older sibling or the scapegoat child who was made responsible for other people's actions. I experience this quite a bit. Usually, a lot of times it's with other people, but normally whenever I experience it, it's through acts of fiction, whether it be film, TV, or books, where an individual is doing something they know they're not supposed to be doing, but they do it anyway, and they're likely going to get in trouble over it. I experience this a lot anytime watching Kevin James's movies and TV shows, particularly Kevin Can Wait, because every episode is like that. He's doing something he knows he's not supposed to do. He's going to get in trouble for it, and it's nerve-wracking. It's anxiety-inducing. I recently began reading this book, Hidden Pictures. It's by Jason Rikulik. I know you couldn't really make it out here because of the Target sticker. It's a really good book, and I'm about halfway through it. But it's gotten to a point just like that. The main character, she's the nanny for this little boy who's kind of being, not really harassed, but communicated to by a spirit. Sometimes the spirit takes possession of him in order to draw pictures, in order to communicate with the nanny, to lead the nanny to the spirit's burial site, because as a lady who's murdered in the 1940s or whatever, and buried somewhere, we don't know yet, but this nanny invites a friend over, asks the friend to watch the boy for a few minutes, maybe an hour, whatever, so that her and a neighbor lady can go into the guest house that the nanny's sleeping in, use a spirit board to try and contact the spirit. The parents want to raise their child through science. They have no patience for religion, spirituality, paranormal, or anything like that. So last night I got to the chapter that it started to go that way, and I had to stop. Within the first 2 paragraphs of the chapter, it started leading into that direction. And I read a page and a half in. I had to stop. I had to prepare myself for what was coming. I'm not sure if I'm going to pick it back up tonight and continue reading it or not. But things like this, even though I know it's fictitious and it has no bearing on me whatsoever, I receive anxiety from this. Same with watching any of Kevin James's movies, TV shows, whatever. It's anxiety inducing because as the oldest, I was made responsible for other people's actions when my mom wasn't around. Whether it had been my younger brother or her best friend's son. I was always the one who was responsible for whatever reason. Anytime my brother would do something he knew he wasn't supposed to, I would be the one who got in trouble for it because, in my mom's own words, "You're the older brother, you should have stopped him." A lot of adults experience that in childhood, particularly when they were the oldest. And for many, it doesn't really impact them too much. into adulthood. But for those of us who endured other traumas, particularly if we went undiagnosed autistic, I didn't receive my autism diagnosis until a few days ago. I'm 41 years old. It can have lasting effects on us. It can prevent us from really finding enjoyment in everyday things. In watching movies, watching TV shows, reading books, stuff like this is really triggering to the traumatized individual. And if you're one of these who, like me, experiences this anxiety, who gets triggered by situations like this in fiction, or if you get triggered because somebody else you know is doing something they know they're not supposed to, even if you're a grown adult, they're a grown adult, you have no control over them, you receive anxiety because they're doing it, because you know it's wrong, you know they're going to get in trouble for it. That's why. That is likely the reason. Because you experienced that childhood trauma of being the scapegoat. You were the one who was always put in charge of other people. Or even if you weren't in charge of them, you were expected to take charge whenever you saw them doing something wrong. And it can be really difficult to overcome that, to experience things like this, or to read things like this, or watch things like that, and not get triggered once you've been through that. I'm not sure exactly how to overcome it, but one thing I feel that might help would be to use ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, to reiterate to yourself, if you're in the middle of a book or a story or a movie or a TV show or real life, and somebody else and you have no control over them, take a moment, tell yourself, this is not your experience. You have no control over this. This is not happening to you. Think of the things that are real, that you can touch, that you can interact with, that you have control over. Think of your five senses. I know human beings have more than just five senses. Think of your main five. The things you can see, the things you can smell, the things you can hear, the things you can touch, the things you can taste. Think of those things to bring you out of that story and into your reality. Take some deep breaths. If you have to, take a break and come back to it, like I'm doing with this book. It may take you a few days. It may take you a few hours, a few minutes. As long as you return to it and you finish, you work your way through it, that's all that matters. Because this has nothing to do with you. This has nothing to do with your past. You are not in control of what's going on with these characters, with these people. Just remember that.